listening to Season 5 of the Devoted Dreamers podcast. Welcome, Dreamer. I'm so glad you're here. I'm your host, Merritt Ansa, and this is the podcast where we talk about our God-shaped dreams, the ones we're pursuing, hoping to pursue, or waiting on God to reveal. I don't know you yet, but I hope to, and my hope with this podcast is to help you move from uncertainty to action so that your life might sing, that it might sing praises to God for your good and His glory, because He made you for big things. But the more I talk with women about their dreams, the more I understand there's a battle within. Is it okay to be ambitious, to dream, to do something with our skills, gifts, and experiences? If you're struggling with this, don't listen to me. Go read God's Word, specifically Ephesians 1, and let the God of the universe remind you that you were chosen for a purpose, in order that you might live for the praise of His glory. Sure, you might feel some fear, anxiety, insecurity walking forward in your dream, but don't let those things stop you. We all feel them to some extent. And you cannot let those feelings, or the voices that tell you you have no business dreaming this dream, you cannot let them win, because you are a daughter of the King. And that's why we're having this conversation. I pray it's what you hear today in this episode. Thank you so much for joining in. As always, you'll find the show notes at merrittansa.com/podcast. And please connect with me and the community of devoted dreamers in our Facebook group or over on Instagram at merrittjo. And now, here's today's episode. Hello, devoted dreamers. Thank you so much for joining us today. You are listening to episode 98, and I'm encouraged to be able to introduce you today to Jenni Eastin. And she is, she's got a lot of stuff going on, but just really briefly, she is a hope-filled freedom fighter set on sharing stories that leave a mark on others' hearts. And in that, she's got a book coming out. She's got a podcast coming out. She's going to talk about some of that stuff today. She also has 2 kiddos, age 6 and 10. She's been married to David for 18 years and has several degrees in special education and behavioral disorders, and most recently a PhD from the University of North Texas, which is awesome, Jenni. Good job for getting through that.
Thank you.
What is your PhD in?
It's in behavioral disorders. So I worked with kids who many times just didn't do well in school. So anger issues and things like that. But I did that many years ago. I've done other things in most recent years. But that took some doing and some perseverance. So.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
yeah.
Years of perseverance. So good job. And
thank you.
I'm excited to give you a chance to share what else God is doing in your heart. So can you just start us off talking about what is your God-shaped dream?
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. It's such a treat to partner with you in your ministry for dreamers. I'm just excited to join you. I know you do excellent work. I'm watching you online and following, and I am knowing that others find great comfort, knowing that they're not the only ones whose knees are knocking and fearful. Yes, do it scared. So, you asked me a question, what's the dream that God has placed on my heart? And I've had several big dreams over the years, but I think the dream that I hold up the highest is the hope that I can reach people with the sound of my voice and be an encouragement to them. And, I've lived to see God move in magnificent ways when I've surrendered some of my greatest dreams. One dream that I had when I was a little girl, and most recently a dream that I've had as an adult. But I've asked God to walk with me as I've surrendered these things, and I've seen Him infuse these things with His power. And I found Him trustworthy. And so my natural response is gratitude. And it's a longing to encourage other people to persevere. to stay in the game, to trust that God is able, to believe when things look unbelievable, and just surrender over and over again and give God the space so that he can do what only he can do.
Well, I was just going to ask you if you would go into a few of those
Yeah.
experiences that have gotten you there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have always loved a good story, and especially one with a redemptive, beautiful ending. And those are God shaped stories. They start out pretty rough, and then we see God transform those things. And I've always gravitated towards the word hope because it is what I so desperately needed. In fact, I told my mother, which you should never tell my mother if you collect things, because you will get those things for the rest of your life. It's like you will never stop collecting. So I collected the word hope. And so I have hope candles and hope uh, hangings and all kinds of things in my house that say hope, because for years, uh, that is just what I needed, the word I needed to really focus on. And I did not come from a perfect family. And so I got to be on the front row to some real life issues. In my home, what was going on is, we had some issues with alcoholism, and I was not allowed to talk about those things. When I did talk about them, I was told it was embarrassing to the family. And so my greatest hope as a child was that God would free my father from this consuming grip, and that he would be able to see and feel the love that we had for him. And so it was almost like, my voice was sucked up in a vacuum for many, many years. And I lived this way because it was the only way to live. And the thing about it was that what Satan meant to harm me, God has used to heal me. And what has come out of that has been a desire to use my voice to share not only my story, but to highlight and share other people's stories, to use my voice to share my faith. And so that is one of the experiences that I had that has pointed me in this direction. And the other one, my adult dream, was my dream of having children, my own biological children. And the doctors told me and my husband that the chances of that happening would be slim to none. And we came to believe that after 3 failed in vitro attempts. And God found a way because he is so merciful and creative. And so I found myself sitting next to another woman in my car, and she just happened to be a surrogate mother and asked me, have you ever considered having a surrogate carry your babies, which were frozen in nitrogen tanks at that time? And I said, well, no, I haven't, because I always felt like it was my job to carry my own babies. But then God began opening up that door. We found a surrogate who actually carried that child to term and delivered it in the summer of 2008. And that summer was a moment that I will never forget, because my dad was there in July 2008, sober. He had a year underneath his belt, and he was radiant and beaming. And the surrogate delivered this baby into my arms after 5 years of waiting. So literally one generation ushered in the next. And the tricky piece about this is we had no idea that my father was really ill, because his sun-kissed skin would have never told that story. But literally 3 months later, we found ourselves in doctors' offices running tests. He was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, sent home on hospice, and he passed away 26 days later. And so God showed me this, that he would keep my dad here long enough so that he could see my adult dream being fulfilled, and that I would be able to be with my sober present dad as my adult dream got filled. And I began to realize God's plans and His timing are so perfect. And it's just another reason why I want to cast this next chapter of my life on God.
What a story. Oh my goodness. And that was your now 10-year-old child?
Yes.
Oh my
In
goodness.
fact, we're speaking in October, and this is the 10th year marking my father's death. So we're 10 years down the road.
Still, it doesn't make the loss easier, but what a blessing that he got to meet that precious child and see that dream fulfilled.
Yep. It's a pretty picture, I can tell you that.
Yeah. In your desire for using your voice to bring hope to others, talk about how that's manifested. I mean, the thing for me that comes to mind is your podcast, Hope Has a Voice. So if you want to, go there at this point, that's great. Or if there's another direction you'd like to go, feel free.
Well, the name, the tagline, Hope Has a Voice, has been swirling around in my mind and my heart for years. So probably 15 years ago, I went to the courthouse and I got the DBA and I secured the domain and I just sat on it because I had some ideas. I always have ideas, but when it comes to executing those ideas, I stall. And that's what I've done for many, many years. And so recently, God has been so gentle to lead me down a path to let me know that it's okay to start sloppy. And He has amplified my passion to encourage people, and He's freed up a space in my life. You know, you're a mother as I am, and motherhood is a mighty task. And it just takes a tremendous amount of time. And so that, among other life events, have always just kind of crowded out our calendars. But recently, my husband was released from a job. And so, whereas part of that has been uncertainty and fear, there's also been a huge part that's just been a divine holding place, a starting place, really, for this dream to live, because He has a knack for audio and engineering, and it's nothing to Him. And so this overwhelming task of taking a voice and amplifying it so that others can be encouraged is going to be something that we can do, and we're ready to launch that. So that's how things have been, and that's how things are resolving, and how we're able to have this opportunity to finally launch this dream.
That's super exciting, because I went back through our messages. So you reached out to me last week with really a sweet encouragement. So thank you for that. And I went back and looked at our previous conversation, and I don't know how long ago that was, but I just feel like when we were talking several months ago, you were really uncertain and praying and asking God to reveal this timing to you. And so it's real fun to talk to you just as your podcast is launching. And so will you talk about a little bit the kind of guests you want to have on, and maybe who is the ideal listener, who's the person that's going to really love your show and subscribe and want to hear from you on a regular basis?
Well, anybody who's going to want to be encouraged is going to want to listen.
Everybody.
I hope. Well, I hope just the right people do, and I hope they share it and they amplify what we're trying to do too. But in terms of guests, this is so fun for me, because what has happened is this podcast is literally evolving around some of the things that some of the areas I need to grow in. For instance, one of the first areas we're going to tackle is the area of trauma and healing and resolving things with the Lord. And so God is bringing me guests that actually some professionals and other people who have just worked this out alongside professionals. Some people who are very interested in nutrition and fitness and wholeness and wellness. So I'm going to be probably batching these interviews together by topic. And so that's going to be the first topic, is healing. And then the second grouping I see coming together is that of parenting. And I think that's going to be a mighty batch too. And interwoven in between these interviews is going to be something called She Said, She Said. And it's going to be a fun time, because my friend Lori and I, she's literally my first friend in the world. We were friends before we knew how to be friends. Literally, we were 4 years old. She and I have gotten back in touch, and we had been off and on, but mostly off, and have lived these separate lives. And now we get on the phone and we'll chat. And we'll chat for an hour and a half. And usually my husband likes to sit in, because it goes from, really deep to really funny in no time flat. And we cover topics that are off the table, and come up with answers in the right words. Both of us are word girls, and we have our own mission in life. But she certainly is going to be a fun part of the podcast, and has agreed to work with me on this. So I think people will love getting to know her too, and hearing her opinion on things. So I think this might be an opportunity for us to field some questions, and to have some conversations about how we might frame a thought or respond to a certain situation. So that's kind of the layout. We have guests, and then She Said, She Said.
That sounds awesome. I love that.
I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when is your first episode launching, if you could share that with us?
Well, to tell you the date would be to tell you, a date, because I don't know that date, but I can tell you this, in the next week and a half. So by the time your listeners are listening to your show,
Okay.
We will have something up on Hope Has a Voice, the introduction to the podcast, which is just going to be me briefing others about what I hope to accomplish and what I hope they hear, and giving them ways to get in contact with me and leave reviews and all of that, just logistics.
Okay.
And the heart behind the podcast. And then the second podcast is lined up this week too. I'm not going to share who that guest is yet, but it is somebody who has brilliant things to say, and who I would talk to all day long if I could. So it's going to be a chance kind of to chat with people like you would over coffee, trusted friends, and have those kind of conversations, an unfiltered conversation with trusted friends. So
that's great. That's my favorite part about podcasts, is the conversation.
I know, because we need to have these conversations. So.
Well, will you dig in a little bit for us about what has been challenging, just kind of inside you, what you've had to, you said you had the DBA for 15 years, so there's that.
There's that.
But talk about just the internal struggles and hurdles that you've had to get over, or work through, or walk through.
Yeah. So do you want to know the real truth about it?
Mm-hmm.
You do? Okay. The real truth is I have a problem, and I want to be in control of everything.
I hear that.
Yeah. And so what I do to overcome that is I research things. And if I can't get enough information, or I can't foresee how things are going to play out, I run. And if I can't do it well, I run. And if I think I might not be able to do it well, I run. So I leave little room for chance, or some might say God, especially when it comes to those things that mean the most to me. It's like the things that you really don't care about. Throw that in the air. Let's see if that works. But when it really comes down to something that means something to me, I have this tendency to stall, and the fear of failure consumes me. So lately, God has gently been asking me to reframe my definition of success and failure. And I've been very honest with a few trusted friends and primarily my husband. We were sitting in our bedroom and the other night we were talking about plans and decisions and dreams. And he just offered this up. He said, well, what if finishing your book might be success? What if just finishing is success?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, he literally just said it like that. And the truth was just laid out flat. And I was like, success equals completion. Okay. Whereas before, I would have been like, well, what if I can't get it to look the way that I want? What if I don't have the right template and I don't understand how to format it and therefore, or what if I don't have the right audience or I don't know the audience? And what if I don't have a publisher or know how to distribute this? Well, never mind. Forget about it.
Those questions could go on and on and on.
Right. It's a why bother.
Yeah.
It's a why bother. And so with the podcast, it's been, I don't want to start something because I don't know how it will end or where it will go. But recently, I've just begun to frame things a little bit differently. And, I'm seeing the podcast as an opportunity to reach people that I would never be able to shake hands with or have coffee with, and to push out the message that is on my heart and on others' hearts, and let God maneuver those messages into the lives of people. So I'm learning to have fun. I don't know if I can say that yet. I'm learning to have fun in the fear. So they say I'm learning to dance in the rain. I don't know if I'm having fun yet, but there is something fun about walking with God.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a peace that follows knowing you are straight in the center of his plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm scared to death. I've got that feeling in the pit of my stomach that says, run.
But you're not going to run this time.
No, I'm not going to run. I was literally sitting at a conference, at the Declare conference, and I go every year, and I highly recommend it. It's for creatives and writers and podcasters, and you're going to come next year, I think. Okay, I really hope so too. And so I was sitting there, I found a table, and I didn't do my usual pop around, try to meet people, network kind of thing. It wasn't like that for me this year. I sat down quietly in a seat and I said this to the Lord in my own heart. I said, Lord, I'm going to be very quiet, and I'm going to let you bring whoever you want to bring to me this year. And so it literally was not but 3 minutes later, and there were 2 seats empty next to me, and Anna LeBaron, who is becoming most known for her book, her memoir, The Polygamous Daughter, sat down. She says, "Is seat taken?" Oh no. And then I thought, oh no, oh no, oh no. Who's coming to my side to speak? And so she sat with me for 20 or 30 minutes, looking me straight in the eye. And she said, consider this a free coaching session. She said, that feeling that you get in the pit of your stomach? And I said, yeah. She goes, that means you're doing something right. And I was like, wow. That means, she goes, keep doing the things that give you that feeling in your stomach. And she was like, there's your free coaching. And then, one of the speakers, Kat Lee, who I'm sure you're familiar with, who's well known in the podcasting world, she gave a talk on starting sloppy. And she said something like that before, just start somewhere. But this year, I really liked it. I can start sloppy. She said, now don't stay sloppy, but start sloppy and get better. And I started picking up on, it is. I started picking up on this concept of lowering the bar. Lower the bar for yourself. Take off the pressure. Start where you can start and do your best and do it with excellence and just let God take it from there. And so I'm back to the place where I put in the effort and I do my best and I cast all the results on God. And actually, Merritt, I was reading something the other day that said another piece of this so well, and I hope you don't mind if I read it to you, but
no, please.
It says the best mirror you have of your success is formed by the people you most trust, respect, and admire. They aren't the only influence. You have the last word, but they can counterbalance your biases. That's the closest to reality that you're ever going to get, and that's a good place to be. Be impersonal with everything else. And I thought about that, and I thought, people who are people pleasers might really love this piece, these words, because what it's challenging us to do is to forget about all the people and all the things and literally ask the people who we trust, who we're closest to, how do you think I'm doing? How do you think I could get better? And that's it.
That's good.
And I think that eliminates another one of the obstacles. And that's one of the lessons that I'm learning through this challenge of just pushing myself into the unknown is I really just don't need to worry about all the people.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. So many people.
So many
just put
people.
that away. I love that. And I think it's it's similar to one of the things that helped me feel okay to just start podcasting too, where I heard others say, oh, I've done, however many episodes, and I go back and I listen to my first 5 or 10 or 15 and they were pretty awful, and it's like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
if that's the expectation or if that's kind of how it goes, like the first few should be, like you said, sloppy, kind of awful, so that you can learn and grow and look back in a year or 2 years or 100 episodes and go, wow, I really have made some progress versus not doing anything at all and looking back in
Yes.
a year or 2 years and thinking, wow, I didn't really do anything. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's
That
great.
is exactly. Have you heard that poem called I Will Not Live an Unlived Life?
I don't know.
Okay, so I need to read it to you real quick. Okay, because it's exactly what you're talking about. It's like, am I going to look back in 20 years and say I've done nothing at all? And this poem has just been sitting on my heart. I'll read it. I will not die an unlived life. I will not live in fear of falling or catching fire. I choose to inhabit my days to allow my living to open me, to make me less afraid, more accessible, to loosen my heart until it becomes a wing, a torch, a promise. I choose to risk my significance, to live so that which came to me as a seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to me as a blossom goes on a fruit.
That's
Isn't that
great.
beautiful?
Who wrote that?
Donna Markova wrote that.
I love it. No, I
And
never heard that.
it's basically, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to close up and run? Or are you going to open up and live? And in 20 years look back and said, you know what? I tried it. I tried it.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't shrink back. I just took a step.
Yep.
That's great. Well, Jenni, can you share just a verse of scripture or a portion of scripture that's been helpful to you on this journey?
Absolutely. There's a particular story that I have referenced several times in my life, and it's actually in the 32nd chapter of Jeremiah, and here's how it goes. You got to stick with me on this because it's good. Okay, so Jeremiah is in prison, and God comes to him, and he says, hey, Jeremiah, your cousin Hanamel is coming to you, and he's going to ask you to buy a piece of land, and your answer is going to be yes. Okay, your answer is yes. So he already tells him. And then this whole story to me hinges on two words. Just then, Hanamel, his cousin, comes to him and he says, hey, Jeremiah, would you like to purchase the land? And of course, because God has told him to do so, he does. And he makes it very official. He signs a deed and he counts out his shekels. The thing about this is it's a horrible purchase because it's a barren piece of land. And God says, when you sign the deed, put it in this vessel and bury it deep within the land. Because this is going to prove that you were a part of something that I was beginning. So Jeremiah is only asked to be obedient, and God will produce the results. So there's two things that I take away from that story. When I feel like I don't have the answers, or the publisher or the audience or whatever, I remember that God will come through just then, just when he needs to. Mm-hmm. That moment has not arrived, but it will, because God has a history of showing up in my life and in the lives of others. And the second piece of that story is this. My job is to be obedient when I feel called to do something, when I've really talked it through and I've tested it, and when God has given me a message to share. Here's the tricky part. The harvest may not come today. It may take years. The book I write may fall into the hands of my great-grandchildren on the day that they need to know that God has always been faithful to our family. And the podcast episodes may be referenced at another time in the future by someone who is desperate for a word of hope. But again, obedience is my part, and trusting God is my part, and the results are God's. And I am learning to cast things out again on God. So that's a story that I've used over and over again when I don't have what I need. I will say, just then, in the moment when it is required, the person will walk up with a business card and give it to your husband who doesn't have a job, or a publisher will reach out to you just then, because that's the way God does things, just so perfectly.
It's such a great reminder. Mm-hmm. And like you said earlier, like it's not in our control, and we think it has to be, or otherwise, we should be scared or freaked out or whatever. But it's like, no, he's got this. Hard to trust that, but he does, whether we trust it or not.
Yeah. Despite, that's what I pray too, is do it in spite of me, Lord. Mm-hmm. Do it in spite of me. So.
Well, would you offer some advice to the listener who is out there, afraid of failure, trying to find that courage to take the next step? What would you say to her?
Well, I can only say this, that I'm currently doing something that seems to be freeing me up inside so that I can move forward. I'm talking to the Lord right out loud in my bedroom. And I'm telling him about my fears and my humanness. And I am asking him to do what only He can do. And I'm reminding Him that my knees are knocking and that only He has the ability to stretch His arms out wider and to go further. And so I'm really relying on Him to take this wherever it needs to go. And that's my only encouragement, is to cast it on the Lord and let Him take it wherever He's going to let it go.
That's great. We all need to be doing that. Well, tell us where can, I know we talked about your podcast earlier. We've talked about your book. People can connect with you on your website at, is it JenniEastin.com?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then where can they find your podcast here at the end of October 2018?
Oh, I know. The podcast is going to be housed at hopeasavoice.com. So, and then they can also find it other places, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, I hope, Spotify, Google Play, all of the places where you find things like this, they should be able to find it there.
Great. And you mentioned you would be having some giveaways for your listeners. Do you want to plug what that's going to be about?
Oh, absolutely. Well, it will be a surprise, but I will tell you this. I love people who share what we're doing. And so people who leave reviews, we're going to have giveaways for those kind of things.
Great.
And people who share on social media, we're going to have giveaways for those kind of things. So I would love if your listeners would connect with me on Instagram. That would be probably a really great place to find out more about what's going on. And then if they would subscribe on iTunes, I would love them forever. And maybe even they could be part of these great giveaways.
And do you have a hashtag, or should we just like tag you, if we're sharing an Instagram story or something?
Oh, yes. Hashtag Hope Has a Voice.
Okay. Of course.
And yes, Hope Has a Voice, please.
Awesome. Okay.
It does.
Well, Jenni, this has been really fun, and I can't wait to see what God does next. I love talking to people who I know you're not at the beginning, but there are some things in your life that are starting. And so it's really exciting to, be able to think about, gosh, 6 months or a year from now, what's God going to have done with your willingness to step out despite your fear and to really reframe your thinking and trust that He is going to do what He's going to do with your obedience and your willingness and your trust in Him. So thanks for sharing all that with us today.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be a voice on your show.
Absolutely.
Great honor for me.
Thanks. So can you close us out with just kind of your final thoughts on how this experience of stepping out in faith and following and trusting God, how has that changed you?
Well, it's all very, very frightening, and it's exciting too. And I've come to expect that partnering with God is going to bring great joy. And I also have come to expect that there will be some sorrow and there will be some oppression, because we have a very real enemy who is wanting to silence the voices of people and the message of hope. So I am just asking trusted prayer warriors to be praying over this episode, and I am praying you forward in yours. And I would love for others to give some thought and some prayer to what we're trying to do at Hope Has a Voice. I'm not sure all the ways that I will be changed, but I'm learning slowly to let go. And I think that's probably the biggest change so far.
If you've ever run away from the dream God's given you, this was the episode for you. how very brave Jenni was to come on the show. I have long wondered how to attract guests who aren't already in that place of success, who haven't already finished, but rather are still figuring things out related to their God-shaped dreams. I've had some, but not a ton of people are volunteering to be like, hey, I'm still not sure what I'm doing over here. Not that Jenni said that, but it's taken her a while to get to this place of knowing what her next steps are. And she's taking some of those next steps, but it's certainly pretty early in the process of her doing that. So when Jenni said she'd had the DBA for Hope Had a Voice, or Hope Has a Voice, for 15 years, it kind of felt like we were kindred spirits. That's totally something that I would do. Are you one of those people with a dream that you've been sitting on for a long time, like more than a decade? If so, I hope this conversation kind of gave you a little bit of comfort and hope that you're not alone, but also that it's okay to finally just start, even if it's not perfect, even if you're not in control and you don't have all the answers, because guess what? A lot of us are feeling that same way. So there are a bunch of takeaways I had from this conversation. I'm going to share just 3, as is my custom in the podcast. So number 1, that surrendering our dreams to God means we hold them loosely, that we don't have to have it all figured out, and that's okay, that we can let Him own it because it was His in the first place, that we can stand here with hands open wide and with a heart willing to receive whatever it is that God might give us as far as our next step, and that there's freedom in that. Takeaway number 2, I love this, start sloppy. This has been one of the most freeing things for me. Not that I want to continue to be sloppy, as Jenni said. I really, really do long and hope for excellence. I mean, ideally, perfection, but I know that's not possible. But the permission to not have to be perfect is such a relief. And that maybe I'm the only one expecting that. I'm such a harsh critic on my own, on the things that I produce. And so hey, if you're one on the Enneagram like me, you know what I'm talking about. But I think others that aren't ones on the Enneagram can have that just intense pressure to not be able to step forward if it's not just exactly right, or if it's not just the, exact path. Because the truth is, even if you, quote unquote, knew the exact path, you might start walking down it and realize that God is pointing you in a slightly different direction, that He might have you turn left or turn right, or just take a little merge onto this other road. So it is okay to not know exactly where you're going, or to not have it be exactly perfect when you begin. And finally, takeaway number 3, that you have the power within you to redefine success. So these are all kind of related, but if I'm over here thinking, it has to be perfect in order for me to do it, or, I can't have any unknowns before I get started. I mean, I love what Jenni's husband said about what if finishing it was success. So this thing that you've been dreaming about for years, or that you've been writing about in your journal for the longest time, what if just taking the next step was success? I feel like that would free us up to just continue to walk forward instead of being bound up in this preconceived notion of what success means. And I'm going to be blunt here for a minute with you, but do you remember the Garden of Eden? I mean, not really. We weren't there, but that was where Adam and Eve made their decision not to trust what God had said, but to take control, to take things into their own hands, to have things their way. And guess what? That is sin. If you have been trying to control, if you have been unwilling to let God have His way with you, if you've been scared of what He might ask you to do, if you do take that next step, confess and repent, my friend. And guess what? God is gracious. The blood of Jesus covers you. It's okay. He forgives you. He forgives you before you even confess. But our job as sinners is to confess and ask Jesus to cover us with his righteousness. And so could you just take a minute right now? If that's you, hit pause on the podcast and talk to the Lord about it. Just let him know where and how you're seeing that you've wanted to be in control instead of letting him be in control of your life. I'm going to give you a second to just do that. And we should always, of course, be chatting with God about our dreams. But in addition, it also helps, as Jenni said, to have some trusted friends in on that conversation with you. So it's okay to go and confess to others and just say, hey, look, I've really been struggling with this. Can you pray for me? Can you help me let God take the reins so that I don't have this oppression of having to be in charge? Because he already is. In fact, I bet there are already women in your life who would love to hear what you're going through, what you're struggling with. A friend and a sister in Christ may also be struggling to figure out her dream, just getting started or battling the fear that the enemy throws her way. She might be in a really similar place where you are. So if there's somebody that's come to mind, either while Jenni was talking or as you're listening to this closing of the podcast, go find that friend, talk to her, text her, get together and encourage one another in Christ that he's in control and that you can trust him with your next steps. And along those lines, I just wanted to throw out there, do you know I don't have a marketing department? I don't have any college interns over here writing my Instagram posts. It is just me sitting in my little kind of quote unquote podcast studio in my bedroom. And while I love to share episodes like this one and tell the world all that the Lord has taught me in the last few years of really taking steps forward toward my dream, the reality is it's your voice, it's your words, it's your Instagram stories, it's your posts everywhere the internet takes us that helps spread the word about this show and get the resources provided here into the hands and the earbuds of the women who need to hear them. So friend, be my marketing department. Help me out. If something strikes you about an episode, this one or any other that you've heard along the way, would you take a minute today and be my volunteer marketing team this week? Help me get the word out, and let's tell more friends about what it means to walk in faith toward our God-shaped dreams. You know, more than 63 listeners have done just that by leaving a review on iTunes. Fist bumps to all you ladies out there who've left a review. And if you want to but haven't done so yet, just click on ratings and reviews in your podcast app and share your thoughts about the show. Here's one from Coach Renee entitled A True Blessing. She says, "You are a great interviewer. This kind of sharing is very powerful and motivating. Thank you." And another from AJ654 entitled Where Inspiration Meets Reality. She says, "Thanks, Merritt, for highlighting inspiring stories of women who are chasing their God-sized dream while still showing the reality that it's not all rainbows and unicorns. You and the women you interview have encouraged me to continue in the pursuit of my God-shaped dream while reminding me that it's okay if I fall short sometimes. I'm so grateful to have found this podcast." Absolutely. We all fall short sometimes. Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for motivating me to keep going with your kind words here in the reviews, on social media, in a direct message, and all these points of contact with you mean so much to me. If you'd like to connect with other listeners, in case you're looking for a sister in Christ to be that encouragement to you, we are over in the Devoted Dreamers Facebook group. We're talking about topics like fear and dreaming and cheering each other on towards our dreams. Please join us in there. You'll start by answering just a few quick questions. I'll accept your request, and then you can share your thoughts about this week's show and join in the conversation. You'll find us on Facebook in the Devoted Dreamers Insiders group. You'll also find the show notes for this episode at merrittonsa.com/podcast/98. There you can connect with Jenni and find links to her website and her podcast. That's it for today. Thanks so much for joining me in the conversation. And wherever you are with your God-shaped dreams, may you have the courage to take one step toward their realization today. I'll see you next week.